Hey there. Today I want to talk about there's a few early church fathers that were before St. Augustine in their commentary on Psalm 51:5. And the reason why I'm doing this is because there are those people, kind of like my last video, proving that the early church fathers taught inherited sin nature and what else was it? Sin nature. And again, sinless perfection. That St. Augustine didn't introduce into the Christian church this concept of original sin and sin nature passing from parent to child. A lot of people that are Pelagian will deny that and say that, that Augustine brought this concept in to the church from his Gnostic background before he was saved. And I'm going to disprove that right now. I'm going to be first reading from Origen in his commentary on Romans. And here's the book. I'm going to put the description in the description box, the link to where you can get this book and the next one as well. And Origen, let's see, where did I have that? Origen lived from 184 to 253 AD, which was 100 years before St. Augustine was even born. So, and this is what he said regarding Psalm 51:5 in his commentary on Romans, and he's commenting on Romans 6 verses 5 through 6. And this is in this book, this is page 366. Where he says, David speaks of in reference to himself, "For I was conceived in iniquities, and in sins did my mother conceive me." And the apostle himself says elsewhere, "Who will rescue me from the body of this death?" So you can see clearly there, Origen is interpreting Psalm 51:5. That sin that's mentioned there in Psalm 51:5 is in reference to David's sin. It's not in reference to his mother's sin. It doesn't say that. And he's going to mention that further in his commentary here. Let's see. He, referring to Christ, is showing by this that our flesh is indeed a flesh of sin, but Christ's flesh is similar to the flesh of sin. For he, referring to Christ, was not conceived from the seed of a man, but the Holy Spirit came upon Mary, and the power of the Most High overshadowed her, so that what was born from her should be called the Son of the Most High. And just to pause here for a second, I'm not in any way an advocate for the early church fathers and all of that. I believe they're heretics in many different areas of theology that they teach, but there are certain things that they do teach that I do believe are biblical. The original sin and inherited sin nature happens to be one of those things that I agree with. But I don't agree with them where they say they reject eternal security and then you can lose salvation and you have to maintain salvation by works and all of those things. That's all heresy and it's not scriptural. Let's see. Jeremiah, also aware of a similar mystery through the Spirit of God, says in his Lamentations that all men are captives to the earth naturally because of the body. Therefore, our body is the body of sin, for it is not written that Adam knew his wife Eve and became the father of Cain until after the sin. After all, even in the law, it is commanded that sacrifices be offered for the child who was born. And a little bit later in this passage, for which sin is this one dove offered? Was a newly born child able to sin? And yet it, referring to the child, the newborn child, has a sin for which sacrifices are commanded to be offered. and from which it is denied that anyone is pure, even if his life should be 1 day long. It has to be believed, therefore, that concerning this, David also said that what we recorded above, quoting Psalm 51:5 again. In sins my mother conceived me, for according to the historical narrative, no sin of his mother is declared. It is on this account as well that the church has received the tradition from the apostles to give baptism even to little children. So there's infant baptism. I disagree with that. That's not scriptural. But that's one of the reasons in the early church period they would be doing infant baptisms, because they believed they inherited a sin nature. So I'm tired of this lie that people keep saying, that they reject that these church fathers didn't teach original sin. They clearly did, and I'm giving example after example. Let's see what else. For they to whom the secrets of the divine mysteries were committed were aware that in everyone was sin's innate defilement. There it is again. And that's Origen, and like I said, he's commenting on Romans 6 verses 5 through 6. Okay, and then this is from the Ante-Nicene Fathers, Volume 1. And let's see, I'm going to be quoting from Clement of Rome in his, let's see, what is this called? I think it's the Epistle to the Corinthians. Yeah, his first epistle of Clement to the Corinthians. And in chapter... see, where is this? Chapter 17. The title is The Saints as Examples of Humility. It says, further down in the passage, moreover, it is thus written of Job. Job was a righteous man and blameless, truthful, God-fearing, and one that kept himself from all evil. But bringing an accusation against himself, he said, no man is free from defilement, even if his life be but of 1 day. And he's quoting Job 14 verses 4 through 5 there. And by the way, Clement of Rome, he lived from 35 to 101 AD. Let's see. And in chapter 18, the title says, David as an example of humility. Okay, so he's quoting Psalm 51. But what shall we say concerning David, to whom such testimony was born, and of whom God said, I have found a man after mine own heart, David the son of Jesse, and in everlasting mercy have I anointed him. Yet this very man saith to God, have mercy on me, O Lord, according to thy great mercy. Blot out my transgression, wash me still more from mine iniquity, cleanse me from my sin. I acknowledge my iniquity, and my sin is ever before me. And later on he says, for behold, I was conceived in transgressions, and in my sins did my mother conceive me. So clearly, quoting Psalm 51:5, it's the Septuagint version. It's not the King James, but it didn't exist then. But you can clearly see there that Psalm 51:5 is referring to the sin of David, not his mother. That's not what it says. And how come, if that were the case, why didn't Clement comment on that? Why didn't he say, because after that he says, for behold, thou hast loved truth, the secret and hidden things of wisdom hast thou shown me. So Clement of Rome is clearly accepting that it's referencing an inborn sin nature into the flesh of David. He's not disputing that. And this is sometime towards the end of the first century. Like I said, Clement lived from 35 AD to 101 AD. So these people that keep saying that St. Augustine introduced into this early church, that the concept of original sin and sin nature passing from parent to child, why don't they say Clement of Rome or Origen or these other church fathers? Why didn't Why don't they say that they are the ones that introduced it when they clearly are affirming sin nature? They clearly are. So if any of you out there come to this video and you're debating these people back and forth, just like and share, show them this video, or take the information from this video and show them. It's clearly there. I've laid it all out. God bless. Have a good day.